actually everything begins, our life begins and ends. So why wouldn't our relationship begin and end? Why do we have this idea that like if we break up, people go, well, what went wrong? Like nothing has to be wrong. It can just be complete. And I think we really need healthy power more than anything else on planet Earth right now. We need to be conscious about power, and we need to be healthy with it.
Hello and welcome to Flirting with the Edge. I have the pleasure to be with Shashi Solluna. Hello, Shashi.
Hello, my love. It's a delight to be here with such a great name, Flirting with the Edge.
Right? Yeah. I'm going to straight away present you. So that's the part where I do have a notebook, and then I'm going to throw it away. But I actually know, like, you're a Tantra teacher, you're a Hay House author, but you're also a filmmaker, which I didn't know. And your works, I didn't know. I think maybe you mentioned, but then I forgot. So when I read it again, I was like, oh, that might be something. And anyway, your work spans trainings and retreats where making ancient wisdom alive for modern love and intimacy.
Very good. Yes, that's the hardest part of a podcast, isn't it?
Exactly. And right now you're in Bali.
I am blissfully enjoying my last days. Yeah.
And you've been doing a lot. And so I'm curious, what have you been up to? And what is alive for you today and or these days? Both personally and professionally.
Well, a lot on so many levels. Particularly today actually is my movie, because I had a 2-hour meeting with the editorial team. So it's funny you mentioned the filmmaker thing. I sometimes forget I'm a filmmaker because it's taken over 10 years to make my documentaries. Started filming so long ago, and I had a vision that I was going to make a 20-minute like film for YouTube because I wanted to show the depth of Tantra, because I thought everyone thinks it's just all about sex, and I wanted to show how deeply healing and transformative it was. And that like 20-minute YouTube clip has turned into 2 feature-length documentaries, and I'm about to start going to film festivals, and it's been a big journey. So I'm up to that right now. That's definitely one of the things that's here in my horizon.
Congratulations for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been phenomenal. It's been and we have 13 million views of the trailer, which is just amazing, that the world is interested in this. So I just kind of like trust the universe that it's now is the time, and the people weren't ready for it 10 years ago. That's a story. That's a narrative I'm going with anyway. Personally, my heart is just flooded open with love and gratitude for Mama Bali. I've been coming here 20 years. I absolutely love this country. I love the local people. There's a huge festival here tomorrow. So lots of ceremonial temple time. But there's also such an incredible community who live here. And so I'm like soaking up lots of great social life. We had a Tantra Jam yesterday, like lots of Tantra teachers meeting and sharing and connecting. And I feel very blessed. I'm very grateful. So I'm just like oozing love and gratitude on a personal level. Yeah.
Beautiful. It's not in the presentation, but you definitely are also a community leader and creator.
It's true. Yeah. It's not in the presentation because it's not professional. It's just, something I do for myself. But I really, and it's also like, when you have like a superpower that it took you a while to realize because you just do it naturally. Yeah. I naturally bring people together, and I love living in community. So I just often rent a big house or even a retreat center, and I say, who wants to come and live and do morning practice and then co-work on our laptops and then pause and have dance breaks and then have cuddles in the evening and tea ceremony. So I just like put it all together, and I discovered loads of other people love that too. So I've been 12 years of doing pop-up communities. I call it Tantrapreneurship because we, as well as running retreats, we also have to like build our webpage and do our podcast and all these things. So we might as well be living an amazing life while we're doing it, right? So yeah, that's my love for community. Very, very big part of who I am on a personal level.
Thank you, dear Shashi. And I just want to mention for the ones listening, this is going to be a heart-like, authentic, spontaneous conversation. So we don't know, both Shashi and I, where it's actually really going, but actually flirting with that edge of both the unknown and bringing some hidden or unspoken to the light, and or whatever wants to come, because I'm not going to poke intentionally, especially some things. But also simply mentioning that I met you, Shashi, I would say both in two places. Like physically, it was for the first time at the Switzerland Tantra Festival. I think now 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
In
It's
Zurich, the first one.
coming up for 3 years now. This will be my
Yeah.
third in a couple of months. Yeah.
Okay. Beautiful. And then, but actually the first time we officially met was online. Because I took your course.
Yeah.
It was trauma-informed training for Tantra practitioners.
Yeah.
And I get the first question that's coming because you mentioned community, and how do you personally navigate this field with like personal, professional, and especially now you mentioned the community, where usually very often in the community, then there may be like previous students, or how do you navigate your personal life in a field that is so, like in your professional field that is so about personality as well, like not personality, soul, but how do you personally navigate, and especially love and intimacy and integrity? And
well, how long have you got? I mean, that's an hour and a half in itself. It's like a big question, because the other thing about teaching Tantra is not only that it's like about personality, it's about intimacy. It's about relating. So like, whether you like it or not, you're kind of in a spotlight, everyone wants to see who your lover's with or how your relationship's going, and it's, this pretty intense side of it, and it took me a few years of teaching to sort of realize that was so. Partly it took me a few years because the first 9 years I was in a monogamous tantric marriage. Actually, my first tantric partner, I just stayed with my first tantric partner, and we got married, and we were just in our bubble together. And when we moved on from that relationship, it suddenly dawned on me that like everyone's kind of looking like, who's the tantrika with, and so up comes this issue of like how do you balance power and vulnerability, because that's what it is really, right? It's a very powerful thing to be a tantra teacher, especially holding big groups, and you're moving spaces full of energy, emotions, intimacy, vulnerability, shame. I mean, it's a powerful role to take. And so then, and then also you get lots of projections onto you. And then comes the question of like, how do you navigate then your personal life? And, I see Tantra teachers who navigate it by being very, very private and, staying pretty much as a Tantra teacher. And I remember seeing one years ago before I was, really becoming a teacher, in the UK, who was bringing everybody into love and connection, but always leaving the events alone. And I thought, oh my goodness, I don't want to be that. I don't want to be just facilitating. I want to be in this field of love. Like I want to be in the tantric field as well. And when I broke up with my tantric husband, I thought, well, where am I going to meet a man now? I'm not going to go to a pub in England. I'm not, we didn't have online dating then. It was like, but I'm not going to go to like a pub. I want to go to a tantric festival. I want to go to a tantra workshop. I want to meet men into tantra. So I think what's really important is to be clear when you're in professional mode and when you're in personal mode. And I'm super clear on it. I feel it's like putting on a hat and saying, right now I'm holding you. And that's a big responsibility. So when I'm holding you, I'm not entangling with you. I'm not relating with you. I'm not flirting with you. I am holding you. I'm like mother role right now, and I want to model that parent role on the divine and be a pure vessel of non-judgmental, unconditional love that's holding you through your tantric journey. I feel that's what the facilitation part is. But some people would then feel like, well, now I've got to swan around like looking like I'm always in an enlightened mode, which you do see facilitators doing. And then you get the shadow coming out, like all those yoga teachers or priests or whatever who are swanning around wearing white, and then out come all these scandals about them. So that doesn't work. And so I realized I just need to be very, very clear and make it really obvious. Like now I'm a facilitator for this month, and I'm facilitating you. And the rituals, the opening ceremony, the closing ceremony mark that out. And so when I do like the closing ceremony of my training, I say, like, I'm now honoring you, you're a graduate, and we're stepping out of this relationship. And when we see each other in the future, we will be friends unless we choose to go into a working relationship of some sort, like assisting. So I make it very clear. And then I have really separate time and space where I participate in events and I don't even assist. I pay and I go so that I can receive and I can feel what it feels like, to be a participant. I can meet other people. I choose the place where I don't have the same responsibility, and because I'm super clear about it, it's clear in the space. I can also feel sometimes I
Yeah.
go to participate and people still look at me and I see that projection, and then I'm careful with them because it still can exist. So I also can feel when people are really meeting me on a personal level, and when they're still, sometimes they need me to be their teacher or their guide, and I respect that too. So it's, partly there's having clarity of when I'm doing what, and then partly is like feeling what the relationship is, which is all about power dynamics. It's not being better than, it's just simply like a parent is responsible for the child and a grandparent, it's just there's this natural flow of power that can be healthy when we're conscious with it. So I honor that very deeply. And I feel when I'm holding, when I'm meeting, and when I'm being held.
Beautiful. I love that clarity. And I have two questions straight away, but just one is like very pragmatical. Some teachers have, like, for instance, a 30 days, 2 months policy of like, for sure, no interaction after a training. Do you have that? Or do you actually trust the fact that indeed, when there's like a closing ceremony, then if you feel there's clarity with the being like in their maturity, then there might be something else happening, or there is anyway, no matter what, like a X days policy, let's
So
say.
here you're talking about intimacy, right?
Yeah,
Like,
for
yeah.
instance,
See,
yes.
I don't have this issue because I teach women only and couples.
Aha,
I
aha.
actually don't teach singles
Good.
tantra anymore. Like I used to, but I
Yeah.
actually really wanted to make space for dedicated couples in the world of tantra. So I created the tantric couple, and I just love doing women's retreats. So as it happens, I'm not going to go into a relationship with my women, and of course, I'm not going to go into a relationship with couples. So I don't actually have that issue professionally. The only time I come across it is in festivals, which of course have a very different feel to them anyway, because sometimes at a festival I'm holding and other times I'm participating. And so, if there is something softer like that, and I meet someone and have a connection, I I feel it out each time and I make sure we have a big conversation and everything's really clear. Yeah. It's important to me
And
anyway because I don't want someone who's with me because they're like, "Oh, Shashi Solluna, and I'm going to get some tantric initiation." It's like I don't want that anyway. I want someone who sees me for who I am, and wants to get. So it's not even appealing to me. I think it's more
yes.
appealing to men, like I think male teachers, it can be, having adoring students batting their eyelids like, oh my God, you're a tantric master. It can be because of the way polarity works. It can actually kind of like make a man feel, um, you know, much more activated.
More.
Whereas I think as
Yeah.
women in general, there's a part of our sexuality and intimacy that likes to be held. And so therefore someone coming as a student is really not as sexually or intimately attractive anyway. So there's that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm both like speaking both from a personal, but then also from hearing other women. Like for you personally, do you feel like having done a lot of actually like really inner work and also being clear and yeah, being strong, powerful, and like also from witnessing you super vulnerable, do you feel you're being like, is it easy for you to be met in your heart, in your sex center, and in your, like, I can be like very sapio being like, how is it for you? Like from
Good
that place,
questions.
there are like the people who tell me like, no, it's impossible. Once you're like actually really teaching in big groups, then it's like, no, it's super rare. You have to seek outside. And some beings are like, no, it's just for you to open. What is your experience with intimacy and being met as you actually teach that? And
Yeah, great question. I think if I wrote another book, I would love to write a book on like sex and power and relating because
mm,
it's really about power. And
Please write that book. Write that book, please.
I've got it in me. I've got it in me for sure.
Yeah.
Just need the time and space. But like I hear a lot of women going, "Oh my God, I've done all this inner work and now men can't meet me." And it's not only in the Tantra world. I see it happening like in the mainstream world. Women are going, "Well, I've got my own money now," and men are not emotionally intelligent enough. So there's this happening. And I definitely, when I ended my 9-year relationship, I thought, God, I've done 9 years of full-time Tantra and amazing tantric lovemaking with this man, like, off the charts. And I was kind of thinking, now what? Like, where do I go from here? But so I entered what I felt was more like an initiatress, because back then there weren't so many people doing tantra. Back in the old days, there weren't so many people doing tantra. It's really taken off in the last decade, and so that there just weren't so many men who even knew what it was. But I discovered that love was the most important thing. Still is. Like, love is a portal through to something just tremendously powerful. And that being a tantrika, of course, there's gifts to bring, to a relationship, but then everybody has gifts depending on the life that they've lived as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be tantra. Um, and I discovered I don't want to be the teacher in my relationships. Of course, well, not of course, but I don't. It's not, it doesn't work. So I discovered more initiatory things, such as just like dance, which you and I know, like the way you could dance for a partner and you could bring a certain energy into the room, and then you're going to have intimacy of that flavor. So you don't need to say, right, now we're going to activate the fire element or whatever. You just bring the fire element and jump on the bed together and you're moving fire. So there's so many non-verbal ways, which I feel is very feminine, non-verbal ways to bring your gifts into relating. Yeah, and it's for me been a very long evolution of dating and relating. So I can't answer that in a small question, but I can say that as I've gone through my time, I have less and less felt what's the word? Like I've had less karmic entanglements, as in people are where they're at when you meet them. And that's why I want to write this book on sex, power, relating. Sexuality is really alive when there's a power differential, which is why, older men and their secretaries, or the Hollywood guy and the young actress, or, like all these power dynamics or age gaps, they're a real thing. And a lot of kink and fantasies based on power dynamics. And we don't acknowledge that enough. And when we get too power equal, we can end up in a very smooth, harmonious relationship, but the sexual dynamic might not be there. And I've always been really curious about that. It's like there's actually a gift, or there can be a gift in Eros that is giving a transmission of power. And it's usually power in exchange for energy. And it can be super dysfunctional, of course, like I just mentioned, like the Hollywood producer and the actress and the guy with his secretary. I mean, like, if we see power abuse, we also see it there. But when it's done consciously, then we can actually see that we're bringing gifts to each other, and that you can meet as lovers for different reasons. You can meet to be a power couple and create something together, but you can also meet with a power dynamic that's going to be an exchange of gifts together. As long as there's a feeling of exchange, then it works really well, which is why sometimes age gap relationships are so unwork. And I think when I was younger, I was attracted to a lot of older men, spiritual men, and I received so much wisdom. And I'm sure they were utterly delighted to have a younger, my energy and power and energy made in exchange. And now I notice I'm at the age where younger men are attracted to me, and and there's also a beautiful gift there. I see, wow, I see what a gift I am to them, but they also bring a lot of vitality. So power and energy often exchange, and that doesn't have to be unhealthy. It doesn't have to be unconscious. It doesn't have to be abusive. It can be beautiful if we see it. So I think trying to always be met isn't necessarily where Eros takes us. I do think that that there's a difference between a lovership, where there's an exchange of gifts, where power dynamics are often existing, and a partnership. Whereas partnership, I think, is better with a more even power match. And that is harder to come by for everyone, to find the right power match. And when that happens, I think we tend to. I've been married twice, and those were both really harmonious power matches where together we became a power couple. And I don't mean that like, you know, the
Mm-hmm.
modern sense, but like together we supported each other in our evolution and our growth, and we created things in the world together. And it can be a very amazing thing when you're met because there's equal power, but it's not the only way to relate. And I think that also in my book, I really want to like see that difference between a partnership, a lovership, and then also just moving energy like we do in the tantric field that I call tantric celibacy. Because when we see there are different ways to meet, we don't have to be so attached to searching for the one that meets us on every level. I see so many people are
Mm-hmm.
unhappy and lonely because they've got this huge long list and they're not meeting the person. But meanwhile, there's a lot of attraction and love that could be a beautiful exchange. And it might not be a perfect partnership, you know? Like if there's financial differences, it's probably going to be an awful partnership, but it can be an amazing lovership. Amazing lovership. So I think it's really helpful to become conscious around these things and not get too fixated on being totally met on every level. Because why do we assume that being met on every level is like the thing? It's not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Exchanges of power and energy can be absolutely amazing when they're done consciously. So that's my take on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my summary.
Ah, and I love it because honestly, that is also really flirting with the edge,
It
in the
is.
sense of like flirting with the edge of power, sexuality, and love, and even consciousness. I feel sometimes we go into consciously into experiences, like knowing what it is, and yet we still get into like a hurt mode or something because it's like the experience that we had to receive or that we still wanted to experience for yeah, from personal
You're
experience,
right.
like going into there, but absolutely loving that. Absolutely loving that.
You're
And
right. It can be very edgy because, like, the examples I gave are like more from the unconscious world. And when there's a power dynamic, we need to acknowledge it consciously, in our BDSMA conversation with each other, or however, it needs to be kind of acknowledged of like here are, and I like to do it in a ritual of like I'm bringing you the gift of say tantric experience, and I
yeah.
receive your medicine of like whatever they're bringing to the table, maybe years of meditation, or sometimes someone who's been in business for a long time and they're like so good at you know all the gifts that they've learned there, like everybody has a medicine and a gift. Otherwise, why would you go into relating with them? Nobody wants to just give. And
Yeah.
so there's something there when there's a flow of eros, and I think getting conscious about what that is
Mm,
is what can make it healthy.
mm, mm-hmm.
I do it by writing fairy tales about, and I've done this for years when I've met
What do you
different
mean?
partners. Well, I write a little story like the tantrika and the yogi, for example. Like I was dating a guy years ago who was an Ashtangi yogi, and I just write in a kind of um artistic way, like not direct facts, but it's about us, and I'm pulling out what our gifts are. Like I'm very fiery and I often attract watery men. So like last year I had a beautiful connection with someone and I called it the Queen of Fire meets the King of the watery underworld. He was very Scorpio. And I just wrote our story into like a poetic fairy
Mm,
story, and it makes it really clear what the gifts are to each other. And I think
mm,
it's important to honor, because it's a bit obnoxious to kind of think that we're the one with all the gifts to give, and often we're not owning why we're in something. Like why were
mm-hmm.
we, even if it's the unhealthy one, like the actress sleeping with the film producer, and later she can say, um well, it didn't work for me. But it's like it's helpful if we can even look and go, what part of me was drawn into that? Because yes, it can be unconscious, and then it's really unhealthy and it's going to lead us into toxic situations. But if we can see that we want power, then we can start to gain power in a healthy unconscious way. And
Hmm.
I think we really need healthy power more than anything else on planet Earth right now. We need to be conscious
Hmm.
about power, and we need to be healthy with it.
I absolutely love that. And I love with the fairy tale, it's like bringing both like a distance, like bring the archetypes and the symbolism, and yet like to be able to see yourself. And now you just brought the needing healthy power. I'm taking this because I feel this is super important. And so I'm just placing it here in my consciousness to come back to that, because my heart and my soul are like, there's a question. And the question is like, Shashi, I'm curious, like, when was the last time you fell in love and how was it for you? Like, yeah.
Ah, that's a beautiful question. I fell in love very recently with
Oh,
the biggest age gap of my life. Well, biggest younger man age gap. And I resisted it for a while. I was really like, no, no, no. And this beautiful soul consistently surprised me and took me through my own knowingness into the unknown. He is a very deep in Tantra and organizes tantric retreats and teaches Tantra, whatever. He wasn't just, um, yeah. And I'd known him for a while, so I really had him as a kind of friend. I actually knew him when he was in a relationship with someone else, so he was like just a in a friend category. And then, yeah, suddenly he was moving my energy, and I actually had a conversation with him where I was like, no, I don't want to move energy with you outside of a container. And he said, okay, well then how do we create a container? I was like, well, that's a good answer. Anyway, I surrendered into this journey, and oh my goodness, it was phenomenal. I also didn't want to surrender because he was leaving, because he was running tantra events in Europe, and I was here and I had my commitment here. And so it was like, oh no, I don't know if I want to go into something when we have to move apart. But then, it's like, God, life is short. And what, what am I going to feel on my deathbed? Yes, my heart is going to ache when he leaves, but like God, I'm left with these amazing memories. So I went for it, and it was such a fantastic connection. I felt so vast with him, and playful and expressive. And he's very much in his medicine was like he's all about the present moment and the unknown. He said, and I'm your lover. I never have made love to you before. Every time I meet you, it's new, and I meet you there, and then we go. So he's like really into this Latihan kind of in the moment thing, but he's also very sensual and sexual and erotic and passionate and fiery like me. And
ah,
it was like, yeah, and he's got this beautiful flavor of dark masculine that I really love. And like, it was just like perfect. And I was so in resistance, like about the age gap, and he wasn't. So I was like, okay, I I'm going for it, and I did,
ah.
and I'm still like basking in the afterglow of it. I'm still like having little snippets of memory and like feeling it through my body, and it was a gift. It was an absolute gift. And we're in the unknown, so I don't know if I even see him again.
That was
But
my next question. It's like, what now? Like,
yeah,
what
the,
now? Both for
the great
you.
unknown.
Like, when you have such a beautiful experience, you literally just don't know, or you still try to make it happen, or you literally surrender to, if you have to meet, you'll meet again.
I'm quite a surrenderer, and I see if it flows, and he's there too. And I don't know, it's different with every connection. It's really unique with every connection, I'd say. Every connection has its own attachment flavor to it. And somehow we just had such beautiful love. There were times we were lying in bed in different positions, and we felt like we were statues of love. We would just like lie there together and feel like we're just a portal of love. Like love is just pouring through us. It was just heavenly and divine. And I don't feel like the need, but I don't feel the need to cling to it. But it's also because part of the flavor of this connection was meeting in the unknown. And we went into it knowing that we were going in different directions. And I thought, with this big age gap, I don't know that I would go into partnership. It was like a
Yeah.
beautiful offering from the universe. And I feel as long as you're not hurting each other or anyone else, then, you know, you you're going to deal with the feelings of aching or longing, or it's not a heartbreak though. Just
Yeah.
there are moments of longing, but what a beautiful feeling is that to like be like, oh God, I'd love that experience again. It makes you
And
alive.
because where we're flirting with the edge, can you tell the age difference gap?
My friend said no.
Ah, okay. I'll respect that.
That was only in my head. I'm like, if I'm not in my head, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in my body, I'm in my heart, I'm in the
Yeah.
Shakti, I'm in the moment. Like we're in a glorious place. So, but that's the thing. Like I say, that I see a difference between lovership and partnership. I think if you're going to build something together, if you're going to build a partnership, then things matter more. It matters about
Hmm.
finances and where you're going to live and lifestyle alignment. Do you want to? I actually broke up my last amazing like marriage because of our lifestyles weren't aligned. Like he wanted to live in the North
Mm.
Netherlands, and I like my traveling life, and so we moved apart. So I think if you want like real partnership and you want to build something, then ages and finances and life choices, those kind of things do matter to cultivate something. I'm not saying it can't be financially different, but it's just that they matter more. But if you're
Yeah.
meeting in a lovership, it doesn't have to matter at all because you are exchanging a medicine. You're opening a portal to love. You're stepping in to something to receive its
Mm.
gifts. And I feel it's not only about receiving gifts. I also feel that when you fall in love, the two hearts coming together open a portal of the divine. I feel it's a holy experience and that it's like you're opening a channel of just pure God divinity streaming down to earth, and it radiates out to the community and the people around you. It heals our bodies, it heals our hearts, it also touches our friends, and it makes the world a better place. So, then the question is like, just because we can't be together forever, should we not open that portal? Do we have
Mm.
to wait until all the little check boxes are there and we can live happily ever after? Or are we going to open that portal of love? Even if we only have like a few weeks together, are we going to open that portal of love and let it through? And that's flirting with the edge, isn't it?
Ugh. And I just thought like, okay, I'm about to create some tantric dating events, probably. That's the last thing that just came out for
Mm.
now this summer. And I'm like, okay, let me just take this, what you just said for people, because I feel that's like what most people, not most, but a lot of people are about. It's like, okay, no, they need to not only like feel each, like tick all the boxes, but do we say that? Anyway, tick all
Yeah.
the boxes, but also like, oh, if it's not perfect, like if lifetime or like doesn't open, like we don't open up to a love situation. So I love that here you're like, hey, what about we let love really penetrate and allow it to flow? And I love that you also mentioned that it's not only a divine experience for yourself and for the partner and the person you're with, but also for the surrounding.
Mm.
Amazing. I
Exactly, as
love
long
that.
as it's not causing harm. Like last summer when I was in England, I fell in love with a beautiful being, but he's raising a son in London. And like the last place
Mhm.
on planet Earth you're going to find me is in London. But the love was just so special, and it just kind of caught us by surprise. And so I wrote him like a proposal. I said, "Do you want to come and have a lovership with me in my house for 1 month? And every day we'll do like a little tantric exercise from a video, not from me, from another teacher, and we'll go to festivals together and we'll co-work and we'll do yoga in the mornings." And I just made this kind of offering, and he said yes, and we made like this kind of agreement to create a container. It's like, okay, we can't have lifelong
Mhm.
because, I'm not going to be in London, whatever. We're in different places in our lives, but we can have a month long. In fact, he laughed. He called it a rolling contract. We ended up doing 6 months because it was so beautiful. We just kept extending. And then he came to Bali and then he came to Thailand. And,
Oh,
like we've actually had, um, we had extended chapters and then he went back to do his thing. And that was just beautiful. I mean, it just left us better off than before. And I think too much in our culture, we've been told it's a failure if it ends. It's like, why is love a
Mm-hmm.
failure? Because it ends. Like everything begins and ends, you know, like music begins and ends, and our you build a business and it begins and ends, and actually everything begins. Our life begins and ends. So why wouldn't our relationship begin and end? Why do we have this idea that like if we break up, people go, well, what went wrong? Like nothing has to be
Mm-hmm.
wrong. It can just be complete. Why don't we just accept that?
Wow. I think you're the first person like saying it out loud, or even saying it. I've never heard someone else speaking about that. I love that.
Yeah, I think it's such an important it's funny because
Hmm.
just this morning with my film crew, like in our film, we have our character Bob falling in love, and then we have him breaking up with his partner. And one person who watched it was like, "Oh, you shouldn't have the breakup. Everyone should believe that they're still in love." And the film editor, he was like, "But isn't this great? Like, you're not Hollywood, and you're showing
Yeah.
that he's had life lessons out of this, and they're moving on." So, I think there's too much shame for people, and people
Mm.
stay in a relationship when it's no longer serving them or even harmful because of that
Mm-hmm.
shame. Because it's like, oh,
Mm.
I married this
Mm.
person, or even just I'm living with this person, so I can't step out of it. And that is
Mm.
way worse, to be stuck in something that is harming you
Mm.
because you're too ashamed to leave, you know?
I think that's huge, and especially more in mainstream, but not only. It's like it's huge.
It is. It
Shashi,
is.
tell me wait, I have to decide first. Okay, right or left? Which is
Uh,
going to be mine.
left.
So this one. So it's going to be the power question indeed. We're bringing back the power question. Because indeed you mentioned before that nowadays, especially, like it's so important to bring back like healthy power. Can you tell more about like it would be a 2-3 hours or days, month retreats about that. So what do you feel is most problematic nowadays? And what do you feel like, what is your personal, not king, but what is your personal drive and in like healthy power, and is it embodied, let's say, or what are some key elements? If someone is in a power position and they're like, wow, I would love to be in healthy power, but what does that even mean? Like,
Yeah.
how can I make sure?
Yeah. Well, I think it's quite simple what healthy power is actually. Healthy power is that the person with power is taking care. There's two things you do for the person with less power or the organ or the group of people. Number one, protection, and number two, empowerment. So think of a
Hmm.
parent, they protect their children, but they also should be empowering them so that they can leave home and live in the world. It's like the motherly bit is protecting and the fatherly bit is empowering. It's like the yin yang pair, and we need to do both. Same as a teacher, we should be protecting, like helping our participants to feel safe to be vulnerable, but at the same time, we also want to empower them. So these are the two things that make healthy power. And what makes it unhealthy is when the person in power starts fulfilling their own needs. And this happens more than you would
Mm-hmm.
believe. Like most of the authority that we look at, like we think about power and we actually think of the unhealthy stuff most of the time. We think about the king or the politician that has all the money and and all they're using power over others, and they're using their power to get whatever they want to fulfill their own needs, which is often sex and money and land and right. It's the feminine things, the yin. And so we're so used to power being abusive like this that those of us who go into the hippie alternative world, we think power is an ugly thing. I certainly did that. Like I
Mm-hmm.
grew up in the world of royalty and boarding schools and posh England, and I wasn't very enamored of it at all. And so I went off and became a barefoot hippie on a beach. I married a shaman with no bank account and lived in a house with no electricity in the jungle. I rebelled from power, but at some point I started to feel powerless and frustrated because I couldn't have any impact in the world. And that's when I actually picked up a book called The Power Path by Jose and Lena Stevens. which I really recommend to everybody continuously. Because I picked up this book and it starts off by saying everybody is seeking power. And I was like, no, they're not. Some of us are just here for love and light. But it's like actually, animals, humans, we're all searching for power because power is the ability to do more for less effort. And so if we're working our muscles, we're able to climb up the stairs more easily. Like power is not inherently unhealthy. It's neutral actually, but it can be a really good thing because if we build power and then we protect people and empower them, we are doing the best possible thing with power. So the good king would be doing that, or the good leader would be doing that, or the good parent would be doing that, using their power to protect and empower the vulnerable and therefore passing on the gifts of power. And I feel a good facilitator does that. That's why I love doing teacher trainings, because I want to empower others. I want to hold them through their vulnerability, but I want to empower them. I want to see them going out and teaching and, running their workshops and retreats. That's the most fulfilling thing. And so that's what healthy power is. And right now it's kind of peaking, the toxic, unhealthy power across our world: corruption, power abuse, control and dominance. These are all toxic power. This is all the people in power trying to control the people without power. And then often the people without power will go into a rebellion eventually because that's their way of taking their power back. And so we're on the brink of that across the globe in many different countries right now, because power has just, become very unhealthy. I think another really good book is the Tao Te Ching, the Taoist text, because that's also very much about how to be a healthy leader and how to be the king. It says in there, the king is in service to everyone in his kingdom. And that concept, we need to meditate on that. The parent is in service, like clearly. And if a parent starts like taking for themselves sexual abuse, taking for yourself, shouting at your kids, taking for yourself, like abuse of power is when the one in power starts taking for themselves. It's not appropriate. And neither is it for a Tantra teacher. And that's why, as Tantra teachers, we shouldn't be becoming a Tantra teacher so that we're more sexually attractive and we can take for ourselves. It's completely inappropriate. We're there to empower others. And that's why we should also just go and be a participant somewhere so that we're in the power dynamic the other way around. And then we are there paying to be the participant and receive the experience. That's appropriate. So this is what I see healthy power is all about, and why it's so crucial at this moment.
Thank you for bringing this like big topic with simplicity and clarity and straight to the point. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big topic for me, as well as you know from my trauma course. I feel like it's a lot of the relational trauma that we see happening, obviously in childhood, but also in the Tantra world, is is like not only a misunderstanding, but we don't have any education really about power, and so many Tantra teachers don't know that the responsibility of being in power and where their roles are, and suddenly they become super attractive, and the temptation is so big because nobody really explained to them power. And then, of course, if your participants had caretakers like parents who sexually abuse them or emotionally abuse them, and then the person they're trusting as their facilitator also starts trying to take advantage of them, it just exacerbates the trauma that they're going through. So it's important that we understand it. Very important. I'm doing a little Taoist tea ceremony through our conversation, so it fits with the Tao Te Ching.
That's perfect. So, dear, I just want to bring to clarity that technically now we're approaching and we are at the end. But I still have one question. So you can actually choose being like, oh, yes, Lila, let's answer the final question. Or you can simply say like, no, that's it for today.
Of course I want the final question. Your questions are amazing.
And I have so many more that are like boiling. That's the edge. Okay. The final question is actually like the title, like, when was the last time, not the last time, but when was a moment in your life, maybe the first one that really pops up, that you really flirted with your edge? It might be a good edge. It might have been like the moment you fell or that you said no to actually falling. But what is one experience in your life that you're like, wow, here I really flirted with my edge?
Well, last night springs to mind. I wonder if I have a deeper one, but I feel like a lot. The reason I said last night is because I was at this, Tantra Jam event, and I was actually doing like a kind of contact dance with someone who's amazingly experienced, somebody I've known for years, and so much energy was moving, and I was just letting it through. But everyone else was just kind of still drinking tea and chit-chatting. So I had this moment of like, oh, I'm being totally inappropriate because I've got these waves of Shakti coming
Yeah.
through me, and I can hear everyone like chit-chatting. And I had in my head like, oh, I'm inappropriate, and it's not the space, and I'm too much. I'm too
Mm.
much. And I just said it to him. I was like, "Oh, I'm feeling like I'm too much right now," just so I could own it and hold space for it and bring the vulnerability as well as the energy. And then he was like, "I give you permission to be too much."
Oh.
And actually, it was so beautiful because then this
Oh.
energy just came flooding through me, and I was kind of like in this dance of energy, and I felt so much love pouring through me. I felt like I could heal the world. I was like, "Wow, there's such beautiful energy flowing through that it takes a certain kind of courage. It's an edgy thing to let it through. It's an edgy thing to be too much. And I think that's the edge I've danced with my whole life, like growing up in posh middle class England, which is quite an emotionally like, "Oh, hello, how are you today?" held culture. And I felt like, God, I was meant to be in Brazil or Italy. Like the stork dropped me in the wrong country. Like I'm a passionate woman. I was a passionate girl. I just passion was my nature. And I often felt too much. And I think that Tantra has been for me so much a path of exploring my too muchness and sometimes having a field that will hold me or a partner that will hold me. And other times just feeling what it's like to be at that edge where the only permission comes from myself, and maybe people are going to judge, but I'm choosing in this moment to let this through anyway. As long as, again, there's no harming anyone. I think that's super important that we're not indulging or hijacking people's space or harming people. But if it's truly harmless and it's just a matter of like judgment, then there's an edge there, and that's an edge that I flirt with, yeah, continuously, but less so now. I
Mhm.
mean, it was just a very big part of my journey earlier on. But still, even last night, there it came that I suddenly realized I'm having this huge energy orgasmic experience, and everyone's like chit-chatting over cups of tea.
Thank you so much. It actually brought like tears to my eye. I was like, what? But actually, it's this courage. And thank you so much simply for naming it and being it. And I think it touched me personally because it happened to happen to me to be in this situation of like being in ecstatic state and people around being in something else and
Yeah.
feeling the shame or like, this is absolutely like not what others are feeling. Like, what's going on? And I love that's like the person you found the vulnerability to just name it, and the person like you were with like gave you full permission just as a mirror to welcome this, and it's so
Mm,
beautiful,
mm.
really so beautiful and powerful.
That continuous edge of being
Yeah.
ourselves authentically in a world
Yes.
that isn't always, you know, open to that.
Hmm. Is there anything else that your heart, your soul, your sex, or your mind wants to share to express?
uh, I mean, no, like I'm not like thinking, oh my God, will she ask me this or what about that topic? It's just felt like a beautiful flow, and I feel like if you carried on asking me questions, I'd continue.
Hmm.
But at the same time, I feel like you've covered such deep ground, both personally and professionally and metaphysically. So I'm feeling very fulfilled.
Thank you so much, Shashi. And who knows, like for me at least, it would be a pleasure to have you again in a few rounds to indeed like dive deeper into other themes that we're here. And so can you tell us maybe how we can find you, and or if there's any specific creation project that you want to share or that can be an invitation for people?
I have so many offerings that I think it's important for people to find the one for them, like because mostly on a professional level, I'm teaching very high level. I'm teaching a teacher training, and I'm teaching people who are already teachers like yourself on the trauma training. And I'm only going up more and more because I'm mentoring. I'm just at that stage after 25 years where I'm mentoring more of my graduates to step up. And I'm sort of not stepping back, but I'm just making more space for the next generation of teachers. Yeah, in terms of like working with me as a teacher personally, then I'm really there for people at that level. But I have a lot online for everyone. Like I have like couples work and introduction to Tantra. I've made this whole platform called livetantra.com, and on there it's a really good place to browse. And I've got my podcast, Tantra Made Easy. I've got my book, which is an introduction to Tantra. I've got my movies, So I've created so much in this realm. And I think the best thing is for people to kind of poke around and see which piece appeals to them and what they're looking for in that. And for newer people to work with me, really the only way is at Tantra festivals, because that's where I'm most available, other than doing teacher trainings and couples retreats. I also do just for fun. And my favorite festival, I think one of my favorites is the Swiss Tantra Festival. So people can find me there. But I'm also going to be in Estonia. I might be in France, So yeah, I'm easy to find because nobody else seems to have the name Shashi Solluna. So people can just look me up and see where they end up and ask the universe to guide them, and they'll end up in the right place.
Beautiful. I'll definitely put the link, and I look forward in the right timing as well to discover your new documentaries. That's also super exciting. Looking forward to seeing you again when our paths cross again. Wishing you all the best. I loved this conversation. That was for me indeed deep. I'm feeling nourished. I'm feeling excited, inspired. And yeah. And as before starting the podcast, that part was like, oh shit, I don't have a title. Is it bad? And now I'm like, no, this is me. And like, you just gave me back the reflection of just like following your truth and just you being you is inspiring. And
it could be Sex, Power, Consciousness, the same title I use on my workshop in Switzerland.
Sex, Power, Consciousness. I love that. I love that. And so for anyone watching, if you liked or please don't hesitate to share with someone if you feel like, oh, I thought of this person while listening, whether they're a Tantra teacher or participants or else, then please share it with them. We never know. And especially when we mention power, there were some books and all, share it, or your partners, follow, comments, and that's it. And I look forward to seeing for more episodes with Flirting with the Edge. And again, Shashi, thank you so much. All the best.